Welcome to the Journeyman's Tales. Well, rather unusually, I ventured out 2 weeks on the trot. This time I've gone to my local syndicate. It's been really hot today, but it's due to be warmer in the nights than it has been. I think it was frosty last night, but it's due to be 7 or 8 or something during the course of the night, so maybe things are balancing out a bit more. I'm on an island swim, so I've got 3 rods fishing withy rigs on the island, 2 with probate TT pop-ups on, 1 with a yellow Northern Special pop-up on. And I put 5 spoms, medium spoms over 2 of the rods. One I've left naked, as it were. Same mix as last week, just the hemp and a bit of crushed up boilie. And I'm going to assess the situation in the morning. Hopefully something will turn up during the course of the night. I'm going to try and stay awake for a bit to see if we can see anything moving around. They do tend to bosh off the island a bit during the course of the night. And from what I can gather, a lot of the fish that have been coming out to the left of me as opposed to the right of me. Anyway, we'll assess things as it goes and if necessary, change things in the morning. Anyway, fingers crossed for tonight. Final editing and checking the footage on the bank. Can't think why I didn't think of it before. Because a wise man once said, first find your fish. Having found your fish, you can ask the question, why do I keep catching scraper 20 commons? Unreal really, isn't it? But never look at gift hooks. Right. There you go. Happy days. Let's hope this one's in focus. Chaos, utter chaos. Good morning. Well, as you've seen, I had another scraper 20 common about 12 o'clock last night, continuing the theme of this season so far. But it was a bit of a strange one because although the fish was away from my other rods, the other rods were going off. At one time I thought I had simultaneous runs, but it actually wasn't. When I managed to finally land the common, which was running amok all over the place, it was trailing an 11-foot zig with a 3-ounce lead on the end. And it was obviously the lead that was causing the problems, dragging across the other lines. But it wasn't hooked in the mouth, it was hooked in the peck. So whoever had lost it, and it looked as if it was the knot to the swivel that had failed, it was hooked in the peck. Anyway, I sorted all that and obviously videoed it all. And then, I don't know what it was, 3:30, 4:15, something like that. The guy down the bank gave me a knock and asked me if I'd go down and help him take some photographs of a big kipper and give him a hand to weigh it. It's not my story, it's his, and if he wants to go public with it, maybe I'll be able to drop in a photograph of it later on. But that was it. Kind of trashed the swim a bit. So first thing this morning, I've redid all 3 rods. I brought one of them slightly into the deeper water and put a bit of bait over the top of that now. But oh, sorry, I thought that was something moving. The fish yesterday came to Wafter Probate TT, and it's just drilled out with a bit of corking. I showed you how to do that in part 10, I think it was. So that's the one it came to. It didn't come to the pop-ups, it came to a Wafter in the end. So that's what's out there now, and fingers acrossed for the rest of the day. Hopefully it'll come round onto the baited area, but the wind has changed round now. It's now coming in from the northwest, I think it is. Well, fortunately the heat is now going out of the day. It really is wiping me out, and we haven't even got the summer yet. So I've had 2 adjustable zigs out for most of the afternoon. Unfortunately nothing's occurred. I have seen 1 or 2 smaller fish go drifting by, but obviously not interested in anything I've got to offer. So I put a bit of bait out. I thought it's either go for it or not. So I put a bit of bait out on the right hand rod, and I haven't topped up anything around the island, and we'll see what occurs tonight. Hopefully something will turn up like it did last night. Fingers are crossed. In the meantime, I'm just glad to be cooling off a bit. Well, good morning. Bit of a strange one this. As you can see, I'm sitting in the vehicle, ready to go home. Well, I was awake about 5:30 this morning. I was just making myself a cup of coffee when a guy turned up, Mike Bridges. Now, I knew Mike was coming because he's come to the Birch to do a bit of a feature, but I wasn't quite expecting him at that time in the morning. But we sat and chatted for ages, drinking coffee, and I got a few problems with my bivvy that he had a look at and assured me that everything was fine, and basically it was my old weak body that was the problem, not the bivvy, and I think he's probably right. And we were talking about various things, and I mentioned that I'd had the fish on the first night there, and it was towing this 11-foot zig around, and I'd looked at it and I was thinking about it whilst I was resting that night. Would a fish feed towing this 11-foot zig with a 3-ounce lead on? And if it was in its mouth, would it feed? I'm not so sure, but it was actually in its peck. So would it just carry on dragging this thing around and feeding? Don't know. And I kind of came to the conclusion that it probably wasn't attached to the zig. The zig was just in the water. It cracked off. During the fight, it had picked up this zig on its peck, and that's what had occurred. That's how I'd the resolution I'd come to in my mind. Now, I showed it to Mike, and he agreed with me basically that that's the zig. And now that couldn't have been put together any better. I mean, it's obviously cracked off from the main line, presumably on the cast. And you could probably have a meeting in a telephone box of people who that hasn't happened to. But when I took the rubber off it, it was so lightly put on. It's amazing that lead didn't come off. But I mean, it wasn't jammed on, it wasn't put, I mean, the clip is actually a slick clip, there's no grip on it at all. So you couldn't have put it together any better if you tried. So, I mean, there's no blame there, in my mind, to the angler. I mean, we've all cracked off. It's just happens now and again, and the knots obviously failed. It happens now and again. So there's nothing critical about that, but I come to the conclusion that this was like a live rig out in the water, and whilst I was playing the fish, I think it must have just picked it up on its peck. So, I mean, the upshot of that is, long term, no harm's been done. The rig has been retrieved, and all is good. But going back to the fishing last night, the wind changed from the well, it was been dodging back from the south to the north and the south to the north, but fairly light wind, but it picked up during the night to a kind of a northeasterly, really. But it didn't bring about any change. I did fish a zig all night, having spoken to another guy who'd come round to do a night's fishing about zigs. And I thought I'll give it a go, so I left the zig out all night, an adjustable zig, and I'd got up a couple of times and changed the depth of it, but to no avail. But I don't think the conditions were particularly good for it. That evening you could see them moving around whilst it was flat calm just below the surface, but I didn't get any pickups, and I don't think once the wind picked up it was probably ideal condition. But I had been zigging in the afternoon and nothing had come along, but there were fish being taken off the surface, I do believe, somewhere around the lake. Anyway, no more fish for me, so I've packed up. I left Mike to embarrass me by catching a few fish. Anyway, I'm going to make my way home. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. I've got to disappear now and throw myself into the mercies of the NHS, but hopefully with a bit of luck and a fair wind I'll catch up with you soon. Cheers for now.